Hi everyone, Howie and Kaylin from Pure Mind here. Hope you're having an amazing week. Today we have a really exciting topic to discuss. It's something that Kaylin and I discuss in depth together, but also with clients. So we thought this might be applicable and interesting for the group. So let's dive into it. Today we're going to talk about opening up to the full contrast of experience. Now that might sound a little confusing, and I promise we'll explain it in greater detail. But the essence of this is a lot of us, when we're struggling and when we're in a lot of pain, it's kind of like we're getting one side of the experience of life. And that we could call the dark side of experience. And so when we spend a lot of time there, it's natural that we want more light in our lives, more of those fun experiences, more of those experiences that we prefer. But sometimes that balance that we're seeking to achieve by having more light can also become imbalanced. And that's something that we really wanted to dive into. Is there anything you want to start with, Kaylin?
I think before we go deeper into this, to really let yourself be approaching this from the lens of a beginner, because I think if you're coming from like spiritual teaching or a lot of traditional mindset, it's really meant to hijack the human experience and to kind of like force toxic positivity. And today we really want to invite you to really just change your relationship to your own aliveness, your emotions, right? Your sensations. And I think really figuring out that, these things aren't there to punish you or because you did something wrong, you did something wrong, so you're feeling sad or, so on and so forth. But really to become more messengers, because at the end of the day, it's all a feedback loop, right? All the emotions, all the sensations, all the different things we experience don't have a hierarchy, right? There's not good ones and there's not bad ones. There's just a capacity to feel. And I think today, if you can approach this training with that lens on and really open yourself up to beginning to relate to yourself and to your body and everything in a different way, you're going to take away so much from what we're going to share with you. So just open mind, open heart today, and yeah, let's get into it.
Exactly. And the more open you can stay with this, like the fewer of like the traps you can kind of avoid on your path, which I know
Mm-hmm.
Kaylin and I we're super guilty of chasing the light and running from the darkness or becoming overly obsessed with transmuting the darkness, manifestation culture, neurotic trying to hold certain emotions. And for both of us, that led to burnout. So if you can kind of, like Kaylin said, keep an open mind and open heart to this information, maybe you could sidestep a few of those little traps along the way. So, one of the big things, especially when it comes to healing or spirituality, is like I mentioned before, when we are really struggling, we can almost become addicted to chasing feeling better. And in a way, that's super intelligent from the standpoint if every day of your life is a drag and sucks, I think we'd all admit that that's not very balanced in terms of what you could experience in your life. So it's like 99% of the time I feel like crap. Of course, you're going to want to feel good. So I think the first thing is we want to, respect that. Like that's intelligent. It's our body trying to move towards balance. It's life trying to move us more towards balance. So from that perspective, chasing the light actually makes sense. What I've seen in my own experience and what I've seen with a lot of clients is that sometimes we get addicted to chasing the light because we associate it with feeling better all the time. But feeling better is only to a point of balance. So 99% feeling like crap to 50% feeling like crap is actually going to feel like a huge, sigh of relief. Like, oh my God, I feel so much better because I have that much more light in my life. But that
Mm-hmm.
center point, that balance point, and we hear about balance all the time in terms of different spiritual philosophies. If you look at nature and all of these things, balance is kind of the big idea. If we chase the light past the balance point, past that like 50-50, we start to get imbalance in the same way as we were when we were in those dark days. So it's really important to understand balance here, that the light and dark are both contrast points or dualistic points that actually create experience. Without pain, how would you really understand the gratitude of not having that pain anymore, as an
Yeah.
example? Do you want to build off that?
Yeah, I love that you're saying that they really go together, right? Essentially, like love and fear are the same thing, opposite sides of the coin, right? Joy and grief, opposite sides of the coin. Light and dark, masculine and feminine. Everything has an opposite, right? It's literally a law of the universe. And it's, if you think about it, polarity is what gives us relativity. It's what we give meaning to, right? Like we wouldn't know how good life can feel if we didn't also go through suffering, right? But I think the problem is when polarity almost gets like rigid, and people get like way too much in control and not enough surrender, right? It's like when the scale is kind of off balance, that's when you usually create some form of like suffering or feeling stuck. And I just think that there's this big misconception around polarity being this thing that we need to like eliminate, right? I need to eliminate the darkness. I need to eliminate, the grief, the rage, whatever. And it's not about eliminating polarity, it's about integrating it, right? It's like, how can I learn to be with the full spectrum of how I feel without feeling like I have to disassociate, without feeling like I have to numb, without feeling like I have to go somewhere else, right? And when you can really start allowing yourself to really feel everything, right? The full range of everything, you get such deeper insights and wisdom and just even just information about yourself, right? When you really aren't resisting what life is serving you up, when you really allow yourself to be present with whatever, the universe is serving you on that platter for that day and realize that I don't have to leave myself. And what I'm experiencing isn't because I manifested it or I did something wrong, but it's just showing me where there's something in me that needs deeper attention, right? So I think that a lot of people, especially with like, and I always bring it up with the new age, really have this just negative perception around like my shadow or even my ego, right? Everyone's like, eliminate the ego. Hello, that's literally what makes us human, right? You can't eliminate the very thing that makes us human, right? So I think our invitation today is really about relationship, right? Polarity, if we want to break it down, is really about learning relationship to these different seasons and to these different rhythms and tones of life, and realizing that we can almost be like an energetic sieve, is like the example that's coming to mind, where I can allow myself to feel anger, I can feel grief, I can feel sadness, I can feel joy, I can feel excitement, but I don't hold on to it, right? I let myself be present, I let myself experience it because it's all temporary and it means nothing about you, right? You're simply the one, the vessel, the body, right? The container or the consciousness that's witnessing it. And how beautiful is that?
Exactly. In I love everything you just shared. And I think for me at least, when I started viewing this more of, and I know I've talked about this in other videos, but like I have a body and I have a mind. So who am I, the one that has those things? Well, I'm consciousness or conscious awareness, right? I'm the
Mm-hmm.
witness of these things, but they're not the totality of who I am. So if it's like the body has lived a life, it feels the way it does based on the life it's lived. Why are
Yeah.
we arguing with the life it's lived? Like, how the heck would we know any better? If the body's showing up that way, it's because that's what it's learned through its experience. And because we keep pressing it to be different or keep turning it into a problem, it stays closed off. It's like, well, it's not safe enough for me to fully express because this guy's being an asshole to me every time I try to.
Yeah.
So as soon as we start saying, body, I honor your experience and I honor that this is where you are, and that's not a problem to me. The paradox of it is the body actually stays open for that energy to move so you can actually process whatever's stuck and congested in your system that it's been holding on to because of the judgment. No
Yeah.
one likes to be told what to do. No one likes to be criticized. Like, we all know these things, but we're so hard on our bodies. And then to your point, like with the ego or the mind, it's like, I
Mm-hmm.
need to kill my ego. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why
I
are you
feel
so
that.
overly identified with it to where it's calling the shots in your
Right.
life? That's why people think they need to kill it, is because it hijacks their decision making. It hijacks their response in relationship to life. But if you're allowed to say, hey, of course you have an ego. Of course you have survival patterning. Look at your life. Like, look at everything you've had to do. Why am I so surprised? And certainly, why is that a problem? So as soon as it's like, it's not a problem for you to think, mind, it's not a problem for you to feel, body, but neither of those things are going to be the decision maker.
Yeah.
Like I have the final say in what we actually do. So you can come along kicking and screaming, that doesn't bother me. I don't have to like it. Like, sure, do I prefer my body to feel happy versus sad? I would say yes, that's in general true. But I've actually come to a point where, like, even feeling sad and having a really deep cry is actually very intimate and beautiful. And, like, so it's not that big of a difference. Like, I could honestly say, yeah, I prefer happiness, but maybe by that much. Whereas
Yeah.
before, it was like feeling sad's the devil and feeling happy's heaven. And there was that big of a difference between the two. Now that difference is a lot smaller. There's a tiny bit of preference, but it just doesn't matter that much because you start to see the benefit of getting to have all these different felt experiences.
Yeah.
Anger, right? Like the way we even label these things, the labels almost start to dissolve in a way too. It's just like my body's having an experience that my mind doesn't need to label, right? Like let it have it. And same thing with the mind. So if you can understand, the reason I'm sharing this is if you can get your mind on board with it's important for all of these things to happen, this is how what creates experience, then your mind can stop fighting it. You can stop fighting with your mind and body. And when you drop the resistance to what is, your suffering goes down dramatically. You'll still have tough moments. But when tough moments are layered with there's a problem with this being tough, now it feels impossible.
Yeah. And what's coming up as you say that is I think, the obstacle or where people get stuck is they over identify their sense of self with what they're experiencing, right? So I'm anger, right? I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm depressed, right? You make the sensation or the emotion you, right? And when you heavily identify with it, then yes, it essentially feels like it is becoming you. And the truth of the matter is, whether it's a thought, a feeling, an emotion, whatever it is, you could almost think of them as almost like energetic fractals, kind of floating around, right? And they're looking for a body, a vehicle, a consciousness for it to land into, right? So we always do have the power of choice if we're gonna keep allowing that emotion to like wreak havoc and have that feedback loop, or kind of like I said, can we move into being more of an energetic sieve where we're more of like the witness of the sensation of the experience. Because truthfully, not to get too woo, but like we are the universe in human form, right? And what isn't integrated always seeks to become expressed, right? So that's why we notice like these unconscious patterns replay until they become conscious. That's why we have, our eternal beliefs or patterns from the past that really shape our sense of reality and behavior, right? Our relationships, our body systems, or symptoms, just all these recurring themes or patterns, right, that you think that you're manifesting really is just sensation or energy seeking to alchemize and be expressed, right? Like life really speaks in mirrors, right? It's always showing you a deeper aspect of yourself that you're ready to heal, accept, integrate, whatever it is. So I think that, when you can allow yourself to really be more of like the witness and the observer of these things, oh wow, I'm noticing, contraction in my chest. What happens if I just draw my awareness there and I just be present with it, right? That's so much more powerful than over identifying, well I'm sad and I must be sad because it's raining and it's Saturday and I stubbed my pinky toe and that's why, right? Meaning doesn't create healing. Insight alone doesn't create healing. We talk about this all the time, right? So what does then? Presence, allowance, safety, capacity, where you can be feeling all the different feels and knowing that it's okay, I'm safe, I'm right here, right? That's healing, right? It's a capacity thing, not an information or let me just know more about it. You know what I mean? I just think there's such a misunderstanding about this. And that's why people stay stuck. That's why the healing industry makes however much money it makes every year, right? Because people aren't interested on getting to the root or really creating enough presence or safety in their body. They just want to talk and conceptualize and analyze and try to make sense of something that the body just wants safety to feel.
Exactly. Because if the body feels safe to express fully without the helicopter parent criticizing every single thing that it expresses, things unwind on their own. They don't need you to mess with it. If the body is allowed to be as hurt and broken as it feels, without like you should be feeling differently, and is permitted to go all the way, that will liberate you because the
Yeah.
body can actually let it go. It can actually process it. So you can really get into a fun relationship with your body and mind to where it's like, body, I accept you as you are. I trust your process. I'm done micromanaging it. Mind, same thing with you. I'm done trying to micromanage thought. And at the same time, I'm going to be the mature one that decides what direction we go because I'm the
Exactly.
one that's linked with the values of our life. I'm not acting on emotion. I'm not acting on thought. I'm acting on what's true, which is my values, which are independent of thought or emotion. So I'm going to nurture this part of my life, rain or shine, because rain or shine doesn't get to decide whether or not it gets nurtured. But they're allowed to come from along for the ride. So a lot of the times when we're engaging with like I need to change my emotions or I need to change my thoughts, it's because we've given so much of our power away to
Mm,
those things in our decision-making process.
yes.
We think we have to feel a certain way to make the right choice. It's like it doesn't matter how you feel, you can still make a choice that's aligned with who you are, which is values based. So the more spaciousness we can create, and like you love to say, and I totally agree with, the more capacity you have, you can actually hold your body's experience, hold
Yeah.
your mind's experience, and still choose from clarity what's aligned with your values. And the less energy you give to fighting your mind and body, the more it learns that it's safe to express, that it's safe to actually feel the full spectrum of experience. And
Yeah.
same thing with your mind. So I think it's just really interesting if we can have this posture towards if it's here, if it's what's happening, it's the most honest thing there is. Why am I negotiating with reality?
Yeah.
Do I know? And I know for me, the big part of why I got lost was because I genuinely believed that if I could control the way my body feels, then somehow I'd have greater authorship over my life.
Yeah.
And who doesn't, you know, like we want that. Like we want to create a world where we feel safe and abundant. And maybe that exists. You know, I'm not throwing that out. Like maybe that's possible. But if it is possible, the path for me has not been like it's just easy. It's about learning to stay with all of the parts that you've tried to change and just saying, I will stay for as long as this cake needs to bake fully. I don't know the timing and I don't know where I'm going. So why am I trying to control the timing as if I have any clue where this is actually leading to?
Yeah, and something that's coming up as you're sharing that piece about like, how much power these thoughts and beliefs hold over us, and that we always have choice, right? And I think sometimes why people hesitate and it stays more in like the mental layer is because change feels really uncomfortable in the body, right? Moving in alignment when you're used to not speaking up for yourself, not having boundaries, right? Not allowing people to really see you authentically. That feels really scary, right? So a lot of times people go, oh, well, it doesn't feel like it's aligned, so I'm not going to do it. But really, it's like your body learns through repetition, it learns through practice, right? So it's like, what's a small way that you can move in that direction, right? If you're maybe it's using your voice. Maybe it looks like speaking your truth and you post an Instagram video for the first time. Or maybe it's with your partner and that thing you've really been wanting to say, you finally have the courageousness to say, right? But every experience that you move and you choose in alignment and you build that self trust with yourself expands the capacity and it normalizes it in the nervous system, right? But if in the beginning, it doesn't feel like aligned or doesn't feel like it's you, that's okay, right? Because the body is still probably more in that pendulum swing of being in control, right? And being in the protector and feeling like, the mind knows better and it's going to wait until the conditions are perfect. But what we know is that like life doesn't work like that, right? You will always go first, right? And life is going to respond to your action, to who you're choosing to be through those choices, right? So I think too it's giving yourself the permission and and the invitation to really be courageous enough to move in the way that you know your heart really wants to go. Even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it feels unfamiliar, right? Even if it's completely unknown, because it probably will be, right? Still saying that this is who I'm choosing to be and I'm moving anyway. That's powerful, right? That's how we reprogram. That's how we take sovereignty back.
And it's also how you disentangle from the emotions being the North Star. Because we've all heard, trust your gut, or like you get goosebumps or chills like when something feels true in your body. So there are indicators where your body or your intuition is like, yes, but that's different. Like that's its own category that's different than like happiness or sadness or anxiety. It's like those are almost like filters on top of true, honest communication with your body.
Yeah.
So to Kaylin's point, sometimes you have to just get moving based on your values, knowing that my body's not gonna, if I haven't been doing it, there's a good chance it's going to feel uncomfortable as I
Yeah.
take this step. But why is that a problem? Why is it a problem for the body to feel uncomfortable? It's just a feeling.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything about you, right? So it's just kind of interesting how much we make discomfort like into this whole narrative about who we are versus just taking it a little more face value. My body's a little uncomfortable because of this new direction I'm choosing to walk in, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You learn to do it with feeling uncomfortable, and you realize, hey, those nerves kind of like made me even more present, right? It made me feel even more alive getting to do that. So I think it's really fascinating. But I would say, as like a baseline, making choices based on the way your body feels is going to be a recipe for staying stuck and doing a lot of waiting. And then you have the existential crisis. If I came here to live a life and I'm just sitting on the sidelines, and that existential crisis is the one that really hurts the most of like, what am I doing? Like, I'm in this cool game and I'm just sitting on the couch. So I think it's super fascinating. So, moving into another topic that correlates deeply with the full spectrum of experience is getting into this place where by chasing the light, we end up almost filtering out or dissociating from or spiritually bypassing the dark. Or, like Kaylin mentioned earlier, turning the dark into this like crazy game that you have to figure out. Do you want to dive a little bit deeper into the spiritual bypassing or like maybe becoming overly obsessed with shadow work and how that affects the balance?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, like you're pointing out, that there's almost like two different categories that happen. We either have the toxic positivity realm where, the shadow means evil and darkness and, the bad parts of self. So they never ever allow themselves to feel anything that isn't high vibe, right? So we have that sector. Then you have the people who almost get addicted to the healing work, and the shadow work becomes like this constant like need to like open every door and find every skeleton and slay every shadow, and they really stop being present in their lives because they think that, oh, my growth and my transformation is going to come from me continuously healing and finding the darkness, right? So it's like one's so rooted in the dark and one's so rooted in the light. And what we know about the path of wholeness is that it doesn't live in extremes, right? It isn't always high vibe and it isn't always darkness, right? Wholeness is kind of like that heartbeat of aliveness that lives somewhere in the middle. And, I will say I am 100% guilty of the toxic positivity cult. Um, I am. I'm so guilty. When I started my spiritual journey almost 15 years ago now, which is crazy, I really thought that I would heal myself by just being happy all the time. And I wouldn't ever look at anything that didn't feel like, light or good vibes, because then that would mean I would manifest that and I'd be a bad person, right? Like, so much of that realm, I think, is trying to like self protect your identity from feeling like it's wrong, bad, or evil, right? Because the identity wants to be good. It really, really wants to be good. The ego wants to be good. But the problem is, the shadow, what we've realized, right, from a lot of our ancient teachings, a lot of the darkness, right, the void, the womb of creation itself, it's possibility, it's untapped potential, it is your gifts, right? So many of the things that you demonize and you don't like about yourself, right, and you try to repress or even reject, hold some of your greatest power. And you would never know that unless you were brave enough to open up, to feel and be present with all aspects of self, right? Because in the universe there is no good or bad, there is no hierarchy, right? There's just a capacity and a tone of all these different emotions. We put the meaning on them. And simultaneously, right, if you're someone who constantly always feels like they have to be seeking for the next thing that they need to fix, or they're like this problem that needs to be solved, you miss like the juice and you miss the beauty of simply being present in your life, right? Because I notice for a lot of my clients who are the addicted healers that they really lack presence because they're so busy on trying to fix themselves. I need to be more healed and more regulated and more whatever before I can experience life. So again, it's self-protection but just in a completely different disguise, right? So I think there's this beautiful intersection where when you stop, labeling them as good and bad and dark as light, and you really just start allowing it to be vibration or frequency or sensation, there's such a deeper intelligence and wisdom and just aliveness that gets to come from you, right? So this is a silly example, but it's making me think about this. I really had to grapple with the good girl identity when I got into the coaching industry because I really wanted my clients to love me. I wanted them to think I was a good coach, right? So insert this framework into wherever you feel the good girl. And I realized that I was so much in that lightness that I wanted to be good, right? That I had swamp ass boundaries, that I was a martyr essentially, that I was a hippie healer, pretty much giving everything away because I wouldn't value like myself. So it's almost like I had to integrate, I call her like the bad girl, or the B word, which I won't say because I don't know where this is going to get posted. But really, and I used to think that part of me was, I demonized her, right? Like the part of me that said, no, you're overgiving. No, you're overreaching. No, this is like too much. I made her wrong because she cared about me more than the good girl did, right? She honored my time. She valued my worth. She honored my energy and what I was pouring in. But because I didn't want to be perceived as a B, I pretended to be the good girl, right? So it's like you can see where this is completely off kiltered. In one expression, I'm just a big ol', and in the other expression, I'm a martyr, right? Neither one of those was serving me. But when I stopped neglecting or rejecting the part of me that wanted to honor my time and my boundaries, when I started to allow that shadow or that darker part of me to be integrated, I found greater balance with my light, and I was able to actually have capacity and a structure that could deeply support my work. But it wasn't from being in one lane of just being a big old bee all the time, and it wasn't in the lens of just being pure radiating sunshine and lightness, right? It needed balance, it needed harmony. So my point is that you probably have these shadow aspects that could really deeply serve you and your gifts and your mission, but you're so busy rejecting and demonizing them because you feel like they're bad or wrong, that is actually destabilizing your light that you're here to bring.
Oh, I love that. And it just circles right back to the whole point of the balance, like we talked about. It's like your balance is both. Dark isn't inherently negative from a value judgment. Like it's not dark like it's wrong. It's how the energy works. It's unseen, like you said to your point. Dark just means it's not visible. It doesn't mean good
Unconscious.
or bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I think we tie dark and light, and it's a lot of our culture, into good and bad and right and wrong. And as soon as we turn it into value judgments, we start rejecting a part, to your point, because we want to be good. So if
Yeah.
we think something's bad, we reject it. So this is like coming back to the wholeness of who you are. You are a good person because you care. And maybe there's a slight orientation towards expansion and light. Great, whatever. But it's still pretty balanced. It's going to be like 51-49. Like
I would
that's
say every
where
every
we
single
want to
person
sit.
who listens to this is a good and bad person. And if you think you're just one or the other, then please keep listening because like you're missing the whole point, right? Like none of us is just good.
And like good, I think it's more of a embracing of all that you are. And like if
Mm.
you're oriented towards being of service and oriented towards love, great. Harness all that you are and move it in that direction. But it's like you mentioned with boundaries. The light side of things not going to be as good with boundaries as that part of you that's just like standing up for yourself. Like you need the whole team working together, and if you're rejecting aspects of it, you're going to be out of balance. Then you're going to be performing something that's not truly authentic. Another thing I wanted to
Well,
talk about that I think is really interesting is we all live in this thing of trying to heal so quickly. Like why do I have FOMO about healing? Like it doesn't like, oh, I'm going to do it perfectly, then I'm going to get to this point where I'm healed, and then what? Like what do you do with the rest of your life? So for me, like really getting to relish and marinate through the seasons has been a nice cadence, like trying to slow things down instead of speed things up. And I found that that allows me to embrace more of the contrast. So if I'm in a tougher season or a tougher week, not trying to like rush out of it as quickly as possible, but trying to ground myself more in it, knowing that it's important and wanting to be more fully present in it. And weirdly, it seems like your life unfolds kind of in the perfect timing if you stop trying to rush through it.
yeah, I love that. And I'm big on embracing the cyclical nature, right? I love the feminine arts, and this is one of their like main teaching is that like everything moves in cycles, right? We have expansion, then we have contraction, we have awakening, then we have descent, we have clarity, confusion, life, death, rebirth, right? And so on and so on and so on, and it keeps going and going. But the point is like nothing stays like at a peak state forever, right? And as a law of the universe, like everything is either evolving and expanding or shrinking and distorting, right? That's part of it, right? But the problem is, or the obstacle happens, or the suffering really, when you attach so much of your self-worthiness to the season, right? So I'm in a winter right now, so I must not be worthy and I must not be good enough and I must be doing something wrong. How many of us have felt that way, right? And there's something really beautiful when we can allow ourselves to just be fully enmeshed and immersed in whatever season or cycle is being presented, because even though it looks like contraction is shrinking us, it is the vehicle that allows our capacity to expand, right? So it's all happening on purpose, right? And what I see all the time is so many people come into our spaces and they say, I want to transform. I want my life to change. I'm ready, right? And then life starts rearranging itself, right? They lose a job, that relationship ends, right? They go through a big money loss. Something happens where it's going to create the space in the vacuum, essentially, to receive and create more. But then, the old patterns and the identities and everything starts clinging and trying to find these lifeboats to hold on to, when really God's asking you to let go, right? Can you surrender? Can you allow the spaciousness for this season and for these seeds to be planted, right? Like, I know we always hear this example, but like the day that you plant the seed isn't the day that you bear the fruit. So then why would your life be any different, right? The moment that you have a desire, the moment you want something, you think it's just going to automatically show up, right? Again, it always comes back to a capacity thing. You have to literally have the room and have the type of field, the vessel that can hold the thing, right? And that's why we have the seasons, right? That's why we have this life, death, and rebirth, right? Because each new iteration of yourself or whatever level that you want to reach is going to require a completely different version of you, right? So all of this is on purpose, is my point. And when you can stop resisting what is and making yourself wrong, bad, or judging and shaming yourself through it, you move through these seasons, one, a lot quicker and with a lot more grace and relationship with yourself. And then you can have these intense emotions and openings and things and actually be present to receive the wisdom of what is, right? It's a completely different way to relate and look at your life and look at your struggles and your obstacles and your opportunities, right? Because they're all in the same playing field. It's just what you're making them mean and how you're relating to them that's creating the reality that you're experiencing.
When you were sharing that, about the seasons, like an interesting thing popped up in my mind, but we're so afraid of our own depth. It's like the
Mm,
reason why we
yes.
want to manifest all this stuff is we're afraid of our own depth. Like we're afraid of really feeling that hurt or that happy or like whatever it is. Like we're so afraid to
Yeah.
go into that void that we jump into magical thinking about reality because we just don't want to touch that place. But at a soul level, it's like that's the part that you came here to touch. Like
Hmm.
you came here to have that experience, not to just get the cookie at the end of the movie type of thing. And so, like, once you actually start connecting to your depth, you almost start to dissolve the magical thinking because there's not a need for it anymore. It's like, why
Yeah.
do I need my whole life to be my vision board by next week? Like, why? Like, why do I need that right now? Why can't I get to enjoy going through this process of the ups and the downs and everything to get to that point? And like who I have to become in the journey to get there. Like that's the actual juice of it, not the thing, because you'll eventually get it. And like we've heard a billion times, you get the thing and you're not actually happy that long. Yeah, because what we actually crave is the depth of the experience. And our visions and all that stuff is just setting a direction that we choose to have these experiences in. So it's like, I want to create a great business or whatever. It's like, great, that's your direction. Now you get to go through the ups and downs in that way. And that's
Yeah.
how you'll experience your depth. And eventually you'll get there in one way or another. But like you'll really know you're landing it if you don't really care that much because the experience was so full.
Yeah.
It's the cherry on top. It's like I already got the full ice cream sundae. Do I need the cherry? I guess I'll take it, but I don't need it. So I think there's something really fascinating about that. That when you slow it down and you're like, I want to be here for the depth. Like I want my body to fully express. I want my mind to do its, whatever it's going to do. Like I don't want to miss any of these parts. I want to learn how to hold this. Like I think that's what we came here to master. And then those external things, they become textures and interesting, but they don't become an identity for who you are. You
Yeah.
know you're someone that came here to live a life. And so, again, going back to just kind of the new age stuff, I think there's a lot of good in there when you're lost in the dark
Hmm.
because it's so light focused. When you feel like you have no influence in your life at all, it reminds you that you do have influence in your life. But I think the out of balance, distorted form of new age philosophy is that you're just the author of your life. And if you feel gratitude enough, you're never going to experience pain. That defeats the point of the journey in my point. I'm not glorifying suffering because I don't think suffering is pain. I think suffering's resistance to the
Hmm.
natural rhythm of your journey. That's suffering. Yeah, you're going to go through tough times, but you don't have to suffer through them by making them wrong. Yeah, I'm honestly going through a tough time. I honestly don't like it, but I know that this is part of me connecting to more of my depth. And that a lot of the time I'm going to have to go through things that I don't like because that sets the stage for something I do like. And so I think it's interesting, and if people aren't being honest about the journey, like I think you and I are very honest about our experience, we're not fluffing it up.
No.
You can kind of call BS because no human is living in a static state of bliss unless they're totally dissociated from reality.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really just want to speak to too that I think, when you're talking about really embracing like the journey and not being so attached to whatever the desire or whatever it is that you're striving for, you kind of have to think about, the idea or the desire is kind of like the seed, right? And your lived experience, the embodiment, who you become through it, is like how you water it and how you bring it to life. It's that felt sense in the body. That's how you actually become, is through the body, through taking actions in your life, through going through the ups and downs, whatever that looks like for you, and figuring out how to hold all of it, right? Because that's the other thing. It's like people say they want the business or the relationship or whatever it is, but they only like glorify like the positive parts of it or what they're making positive. And God's like, oh, well, you said you wanted to hold a business. Let me show you what it's like when people don't make their payments. Let me show you about when you go through a month with no leads. Let me show you. Can you hold that too? Great. You can hold that. Then you can also hold 20 people coming to one of your classes. You can also hold, you know what I mean? So it's like you have to realize that when you are on the path of becoming, life isn't punishing you, it is preparing you, right? Every step is preparing you for what you said you wanted. You can't only just glorify parts of it, because then you, again, I'm always going to come back to it. You don't have the capacity to really hold it and to really be the person who's operating at that level, right? So I hate when people say like that the universe tests you, but like it kind of does, right? It says, here's this thing that you say you want. How are you going to hold it? How are you going to meet it? How are you going to relate to it? Are you ready to really receive more? Right? Because if you can't handle this one little thing, how are you going to do it 10 times this? Right? So when you can start looking at it as like all these different opportunities and obstacles that kind of unveil themselves on your path are perfectly placed for your becoming, then how do you show up in your power to meet it? Right? It takes you out of the victim. It takes you out of the blamer. It takes you out of, oh, life is happening to me, right? Like we all have those moments. And you can realize that you have radical responsibility. You have sovereignty, right? You always have power in something. And like that's where the embodiment, that's where true transformation exists, right? In those moments.
And if you make choices from that perspective that you just shared, of like, okay, there's going to be ebbs and flows. No matter what choice I make, there's going to be ups and downs. It doesn't matter. There's no choice where you get to skip the downs.
Yeah.
Will you hopefully make choices from something that it's worth going through the ups and downs for?
Yeah.
Because if you choose something like, I want this thing just so it makes me money, for example,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with money, but if there's not something anchored in like a mission, you will, at the first hiccup in the road, you'll quit because there wasn't something deep enough driving you through the challenge. So like with the work we do, it's like it's so deeply aligned with our values that it's worth putting up with a lot of the BS that you're going to have to put up with through the growth period. It's like it's just what you're signing up for. It's like if you signed up for school, you don't go into school thinking it's just going to be easy. Like there's going to be tests, there's going to be quizzes, pop quizzes. I'm going to have to study a lot. Like I'm going to have to put in time. But do I care about what I'm learning about? Like, do I care about where that could go?
Yeah.
So I think that we're not selling fantasy land over here. Every choice has challenges. What's the choice worth going through the challenges for?
Yeah.
And that's, again, getting back to your values. Hey, I want to have kids. Great. There's going to be a lot of challenges, but is it worth it? Right? It's like same type of thing. So getting into that rhythm, though, if you can drop the resistance to this, if you really understand that life works like this, it just works in a expansion and contraction. It's like a sine wave. You understand that. You don't have to resist that.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just going to get on board with the low tide and high tide. I'm not going to negotiate that it's high tide all the time. It can be a lot more pleasant. It can be a lot more graceful. That's for sure. It doesn't have to be impossible.
I love that.
Is there anything you wanted to add before we close this up, Caitlin?
I think things that I just want to highlight that I feel like are important from today is that there is not a hierarchy of emotions, right? There isn't this hierarchy, there isn't this good and bad, there's just feeling, there's just sensation, right? Also, holding that while also knowing that your emotions, your beliefs, your sensations mean absolutely nothing about you, that you are literally just the one experiencing it. So instead of like overly attaching with like I am statements with it, being more of that like objective witness, right? Like, oh, I'm experiencing sadness, I'm experiencing contraction. And what would it look like instead of trying to get rid of it instantly or move away or numb it, to just get really intimate and curious about it, right? No agenda, nothing to figure out, simply presence. I think if you can take those couple things and really just start playing with it, like it doesn't have to be this serious thing, but just start noticing more about when you notice, different emotions arising, when you notice different sensations in your body, and how quick you go to label or fix them, and moving just to that realm of presence and space and allowance, just noticing there what can shift for you, right? I think for me, those couple things dramatically changed my life. Truly. Like just being able to be with myself, to be with my emotions, to be with whatever was happening in my body, and realizing that all of it was safe, all of it had permission to be there, all of it was beautiful to exist. I was able to just change how I was relating to it and myself in such a different way, and to really start creating this capacity and even like polarity in the body where I could be feeling joy and grief simultaneously. I could be feeling this deep connected of oneness and fear at the same time. And just like noticing like, wow, like what a paradox, and also how cool. You know what I mean? How cool that all of it gets to be here and none of it's right, none of it's wrong, right? It's all a feedback loop. It's all information, right? So that would be my greatest invitation for any of you here today. And if this all still feels foreign and you don't know how to make it land, this is why we have our containers, right? To support you as you journey into yourself, as you really start changing the relationship to your body, to your nervous system, to your reality. So if you're looking for a safe, intentional place to really explore this with altered states or without, we would love an opportunity to welcome you into our community.
Yes, we have live rewiring sessions every Thursday night. If anyone's interested in that, you can reach out to either Kaylin or I. That's a really good stepping stone into the body and into creating that spaciousness and kind of new orientation towards your body and your mind. And just to piggyback on what you said about the almost like paradox with like holding grief and joy at the same time, when you start doing this consistently, you'll start having experiences that you can't label.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know what I'm feeling. Like it's like my mind can't even come up with a word for it. So it gets more and more fascinating the less we're trying to nitpick the whole thing and letting our body and minds have their experience. So yeah, we'd love to have you and thank you for tuning in, and we will stay consistent with these. So thank you guys so much.